Zara sat in the cold, dimly lit cell, the stone walls pressing in on her like the weight of the entire universe. The air was thick, musty, and stale. It had been days since anyone had come to speak to her. Days since the trial that had condemned her to this fate. And with each passing moment, she felt her heart grow heavier, weighed down by the unjust accusations that had been thrown at her. Her mind replayed the events that had led to this point, over and over, as if trying to make sense of a nightmare she couldn't wake from. She had been a member of a peaceful society, one that valued honor and purity, but in one moment everything had unraveled. One mistake, one misunderstood action, and she had been branded a sinner. The alien society she had once called home was unforgiving, its laws strict and absolute. In their eyes, she had committed the ultimate crime, a betrayal against their sacred beliefs. Zara's crime? She had helped someone who was not of their kind, a human. To them, this was a great offense, a breach of the laws that governed their way of life. Helping an outsider was not just an act of kindness, it was an unforgivable sin. Her mind wandered back to the day it all began. She had been working quietly in the garden, tending to the plants that grew in the soft soil of her homeland. The bright orange sun had been setting, casting a warm glow over everything. It was a peaceful evening, the kind she had cherished. That was when she had found him, a human lying on the ground, barely conscious. His clothes were torn, his face bloodied and bruised. He was different, a stranger in her world. But his eyes had looked at her with something she had never expected. Hope. She had reached out to help him, guiding him into the safety of her home and tending to his wounds. She didn't know why she had done it. She could have ignored him, called the authorities and turned him over, but she hadn't. She had chosen to help him, and for that she had been sentenced to this cold, lonely prison cell, where she waited for the consequences of her actions to unfold. Zara closed her eyes and leaned her head against the stone wall, letting the memories flood back. She remembered the whispers that followed her, the looks of disgust from her fellow citizens. Betrayer, they had called her. Sinner. The word had followed her wherever she went, a constant reminder of the unforgivable mistake she had made. The trial had been quick. The judge had never even looked at her with sympathy. There had been no defense. The accusation alone was enough to seal her fate. She had tried to explain herself, to tell them that she had only acted out of kindness, but they wouldn't listen. In their eyes there was no room for compassion, no room for exceptions. Once you were branded a sinner, there was no coming back. There was no redemption. The door to her cell creaked open, and for a moment, Zara's heart skipped a beat. Had they come to take her for the final punishment? Was it time for her to face whatever they had planned for her? But when she looked up, it wasn't the guards who stood there. It was someone entirely unexpected. A man, a human man. He stood in the doorway, framed by the dim light of the corridor behind him. His face was hardened, but his eyes held something different, something Zara had not seen in the eyes of anyone here in a long time. Compassion. He wasn't looking at her with the judgment that everyone else had. No. His gaze was filled with understanding, as if he saw something beyond the label of sinner that had been forced upon her. Zara blinked, unsure of what to make of him. "What are you doing here?" she asked, her voice rough from days of disuse. The man stepped forward, the faint click of his boots against the stone floor echoing in the silence. He stopped just a few feet away, his expression serious but not hostile. "I'm here to help you," he said quietly, his words carrying a weight of truth that she could feel deep in her bones. Zara's mind raced. Why would a human want to help her? She had been taught to fear humans, to see them as enemies of their kind. They were outsiders, invaders. Yet here was one standing in front of her, offering a hand, a lifeline. "Help me?" Zara repeated, a mix of confusion and hope swirling in her chest. "Why? I'm a sinner. I deserve this." The man shook his head, his brow furrowed with empathy. "No, you don't. They've lied to you. What you did was not a crime. Helping someone in need is never a sin. Zara's heart clenched. Was this a dream? Could it be possible that someone, especially a human, could see her for who she truly was and not as the monster the society had turned her into? But before she could speak, the man held up his hand. I'm not here to debate your guilt or innocence, he said. I'm here because I believe you can be saved. You don't deserve to die in this cell to be forgotten. You deserve a chance. Zara. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Zara felt something she hadn't allowed herself to feel. Hope. It was a fragile thing. Something she had buried deep inside her heart, afraid to let it rise. But this man, a stranger, a human, had given her a glimpse of something she had longed for. A chance to be free. Her voice shook as she spoke. But how? How can anyone save me now? The man's eyes softened. I will fight for you. I'll show them that they're wrong. You don't belong here. As Zara listened to his words, the walls of her cell, both literal and figurative, seemed to crumble piece by piece. Could it be true? Could one person, one human, truly see her for who she was? Could someone actually save her from this fate she had been condemned to? The answer wasn't clear yet, but one thing was certain. This human, this stranger, had given her something she hadn't had in a long time, a reason to believe, a reason to keep fighting. And for the first time in a long while, Zara allowed herself to hope. Zara sat motionless on the cold stone floor of her cell, staring at the man before her. His presence felt like a beacon of light in the dark, suffocating world she had been trapped in. The prison she had once thought of as an immovable wall now felt more like a temporary cage, its bars seeming to melt away as she processed the words he had spoken. I will fight for you, the human had said. I'll show them that they're wrong. You don't belong here. She had never expected this, especially not from a human. Zara had been taught to fear their kind. Humans were seen as invaders, troublemakers, something to be controlled, not something to be trusted. Yet this man, this stranger, was offering her something no one else had in a long time. Hope. Hope she had almost forgotten existed. The silence between them stretched, both of them unsure of how to proceed. Zara's mind raced. Who was this man? What did he really want from her? How could he, a human, stand up against an entire system that had branded her a sinner, that had made her an outcast in her own society? The man took a step closer to her, and for a moment, Zara stiffened, her instincts telling her to retreat, to push him away. But the gentleness in his eyes held her in place. He wasn't here to harm her. In fact, his presence was the opposite of the hostility that had surrounded her for so long. His eyes were filled with a quiet understanding, as though he saw something in her that no one else had. I'm Alex, the man said, his voice soft but firm. I know you don't trust me, but I want to help you. Zara looked at him, confusion mixing with a spark of hope. Why would you want to help me? She whispered, still unsure whether she should be wary or grateful. I'm a sinner. I don't deserve your help. I've done terrible things. Alex shook his head, his expression unwavering. You didn't do anything wrong, he said. They've lied to you. They've made you believe you're a sinner, but you're not. Helping someone, showing compassion, it's never a sin. Zara felt the weight of his words pressing against her heart. She had spent so much time in this prison, locked away with her guilt, that she had started to believe the lies. Her people had turned their backs on her, calling her a sinner, condemning her to this fate. But Alex, this human, was offering her a lifeline, something so simple and pure that it made her chest tighten with emotion. But how? Zara asked, her voice barely audible. How can you save me? How can anyone save me from this? Alex crouched down in front of her, lowering himself to her level. His eyes softened, and for a moment Zara saw something in them she had never seen in anyone from her world, genuine empathy. He reached out a hand, offering it to her, and despite the part of her that wanted to pull away, Zara found herself hesitating. She wanted to trust him, to believe that someone out there cared enough to fight for her. "You don't deserve this, Zara," Alex said. "You're not the person they say you are. You were just trying to help. You did nothing wrong." Zara hesitated, for a moment longer. But then slowly, she took his hand. It was the smallest gesture, but it felt like the beginning of something far greater. As their fingers touched, something shifted between them, something that neither of them had anticipated. It was as though the universe itself recognized the connection, a fleeting moment of understanding and alliance in a world that had tried so hard to tear them apart. "I'll take you with me," Alex continued, his voice determined. "We'll leave. This place, I'll protect you, I promise you, Zara. I will make sure they never hurt you again." Zara's mind swirled with 100 different emotions. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to escape the darkness of her cell, to feel the warmth of the outside world again, to leave behind the suffocating pain of being falsely accused. But could she really trust him? Could she trust a human, someone who was part of the very society that had condemned her? Before she could voice her doubts, Alex stood up, offering her his hand again. "We don't have much time," he said, urgency creeping into his voice. "They'll be coming for you soon. We need to leave now while we still have the chance." Zara's heart skipped a beat. The weight of the situation hit her all at once. She had no idea what the future held, no idea where Alex would take her or what dangers lay ahead. But one thing was certain. This was her only chance. If she stayed here, in this prison, she would surely face death. But if she followed Alex, if she took this leap of faith, there was a chance, a small, fragile chance that she could be free. With trembling hands, Zara stood up. Her legs felt weak from days of confinement, but the strength in Alex's words gave her the will to move. She had been locked away for so long, isolated and alone, but now, for the first time in ages, she felt the stirrings of something more, powerful than fear, hope. "Where will we go?" Zara asked, her voice barely a whisper. Alex smiled, a reassuring warm smile that somehow eased the knot of anxiety in her chest. "Wherever you want," he said. "I'll help you get there. No more running. No more hiding." For the first time in what felt like an eternity, Zara felt like she was no longer alone. She wasn't just a sinner. She wasn't just a prisoner. She was a person worthy of love and protection. And maybe, just maybe, she could build a future outside the walls that had kept her captive for so long. As they walked toward the exit, Zara's heart raced with anticipation. Her fate was still uncertain, and the dangers they would face were far from over. But in that moment, as she stepped out of the shadows and into the light, she felt the weight of her past beginning to lift. The future was unknown, but with Alex by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. As days passed, Zara and Alex traveled together, leaving the city that had condemned her far behind. Every step felt like a small victory, a new beginning. Yet the farther they ventured, the more Zara realized that freedom was not a simple prize. The world outside the prison she had once known was vast, and not all of it would welcome them. Zara was constantly on edge, always looking over her shoulder, afraid that at any moment, the authorities would catch up with them. The escape had been quick, too quick, and the danger of being caught never left her mind. Alex, on the other hand, seemed certain of their path, his resolve unshaken. He was leading them through hidden paths, remote forests and abandoned villages, places where no one would look for them. But despite his outward calm, Zara could sense the tension in his movements, the careful way he kept a lookout. He was just as worried as she was, even if he didn't show it. The journey was hard. Zara had never known hardship like this before. In her old life, she had been sheltered, comfortable, never truly feeling the weight of the world. Now, the reality of life on the run was setting in. They had no resources, no allies, and no plan. All they had was each other and the faint hope that they could make it somewhere safe. One evening, as the sky turned orange with the setting sun, Alex and Zara camped near an old stone ruin. Zara sat by the fire, her mind whirling with questions. She wanted to ask Alex everything, about his life, about why he had helped her, about what came next, but she held back. She didn't want to burden him with her fears. After all, he was the one leading them, the one who seemed to have all the answers. Yet Zara couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. "Alex," she finally said, breaking the silence, "how do you know where to go? How do you know we won't be caught?" Alex looked up from the fire, his face etched with exhaustion. "I don't," he admitted, his voice calm but tinged with uncertainty. "But we have to keep moving. Staying in one place is too dangerous. They'll be looking for us everywhere, and if we're caught, they won't just imprison us, they'll kill us." Zara finished for him, her voice barely above a whisper. Alex nodded, his jaw tightening. "Yeah, so we move. One step at a time." But Zara wasn't so sure anymore. She had always trusted her people, believed in their laws, their sense of justice. She had been raised to follow the rules, to do what was right. But now, everything she had once known felt like a lie. The truth of her situation was beginning to sink in. This wasn't just about her anymore. The stakes were much higher. "What if we're wrong, Alex?" she asked, her voice shaking. "What if everything we're doing is wrong? What if we're making things worse?" Alex looked at her, his eyes softer now. "I know you're scared," he said gently. "But we're not alone in this. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere." Zara wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that the choices they were making were the right ones. But as the night deepened, she couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. And it wasn't just the authorities they had to fear. The next morning, as they packed up their camp and prepared to continue their journey, Zara noticed something that sent a chill down her spine. In the distance, she saw a group of figures, moving swiftly through the trees. They were cloaked in dark clothing, their faces obscured by hoods. At first, Zara thought it was just her mind playing tricks on her. But then Alex froze, his eyes narrowing as he saw the figures too. "They've found us," Alex muttered under his breath. Zara's heart skipped a beat. She had known it was only a matter of time, but she hadn't expected it to happen so soon. She turned to Alex, panic rising in her chest. "What do we do now?" Alex didn't answer right away. He was already moving, grabbing his things and pulling Zara to her feet. "We run," he said. "Stay close." They ran through the dense forest, branches whipping at their faces as they scrambled through the underbrush. Zara's breath came, in ragged gasps, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never run for her life before. She had never felt the raw terror of knowing that if they were caught, there would be no escape. Behind them, the sound of footsteps grew louder. The figures were gaining on them. "We need to get to higher ground," Alex said, pushing Zara forward. "There's a ridge up ahead, we can hide there." But as they neared the ridge, the ground beneath them began to shake. Zara stumbled, nearly falling, as the earth seemed to tremble beneath their feet. She looked up, her eyes wide with fear, and saw something that made her blood run cold. The figures chasing them were not just any soldiers. They were something far more dangerous, beings with strange, glowing symbols etched across their skin, their eyes glowing an unnatural red. Zara had seen them before. These were the elite enforcers of the society that had condemned her. They were not just after her. They were after Alex too. Zara's mind raced as she tried to make sense of it. How had they found them? Who were these people? What did they want? In that moment, Alex turned to her, his expression grim. "Zara," he said, his voice low and urgent, "you need to trust me. This isn't just about us anymore. It's about stopping them, about stopping the system that's been hunting you." Zara could see the determination in his eyes, the same fire that had driven him to help her from the very beginning. But now, the situation had changed. The fight they were facing was no longer just about survival. It was about exposing the truth, about bringing down a corrupt system that had kept her and countless others captive. The stakes had never been higher, and Zara knew that no matter what happened next, she and Alex were in this together. The battle for her freedom had just escalated into something much larger, than either of them had imagined. Zara and Alex had been running for days, their journey taking them further into the unknown. They had barely slept, always on the move, always looking over their shoulders. The elite enforcers were relentless, closing in with each passing hour, and the closer they got, the more Zara felt the weight of the decision pressing down on her. Every step felt heavier. The world around them, once filled with hope and possibility, now felt like a labyrinth of danger and uncertainty. The lush forests and quiet valleys they had passed through seemed like distant memories, replaced by the harsh, unforgiving landscape of the mountains they were now scaling. The weather had turned colder and the wind howled against them, biting through their clothes, but neither of them stopped. They couldn't afford to. But as they reached the top of the mountain ridge, Zara paused. The view before her was breathtaking, the sprawling expanse of land below stretching out far beyond what she could see. The sun was setting, casting a warm golden glow across the world, and for a moment it felt like they were the only ones left. The quiet beauty of the moment was a sharp contrast to the chaos that had been chasing them for so long. "I never imagined it would be like this," Zara said, her voice barely more than a whisper. "I never imagined freedom could feel so empty." Alex, who had been leading the way, stopped beside her. His gaze softened as he looked at her. "Freedom is never easy," he said. "It's a fight, a constant battle. And sometimes when you've been trapped for so long, it's hard to remember what it feels like to be truly free." Zara swallowed, the weight of his words sinking in. She had spent so much time running, trying to escape the system that had condemned her, that she hadn't fully realized the cost of that escape. She had run from the labels, from the judgment. But now, standing here on the edge of this cliff, she realized there was something even more pressing at stake. The decision before her was not just about running. It wasn't just about escaping her past. It was about making a choice that could change everything. Alex had come into her life like a spark, lighting a fire of hope that she had buried long ago. But now, that spark had become a burning flame, one that she couldn't ignore no matter how hard she tried. But Zara knew the truth. Her past was catching up with her. The enforcers weren't just chasing them. They were chasing the truth. And the truth was something the world wasn't ready to face. As they stood there, the sound of footsteps echoed through the valley below. Zara turned her head sharply, her heart racing. The enforcers had found them again. They had no time left. "They're getting closer," Zara said, her voice urgent. "What do we do now?" Alex looked at her with a determination she had never seen before. He was calm, collected, as if he had already made his decision. "We fight," he said simply. "We stand our ground and show them we're not afraid." Zara's heart pounded in her chest. "But we can't win, Alex. We're outnumbered, and I'm not the one they're after. It's me. They want me. And I can't let you risk your life for me." Alex stepped closer, his eyes locking onto hers. "You're not alone anymore, Zara, and neither am I. We're in this together." The words hung in the air, and for a moment everything felt still. Zara's mind raced, her emotions swirling inside her. Could she really fight for something she wasn't sure she deserved? Was she ready to face the consequences of everything she had done, or rather, everything she had been accused of? Could she stand up and face her past, knowing that it might cost her everything? She turned to look at the approaching figures below. The enforcers were closing in, their forms becoming more defined as they neared the top of the ridge. There was no more running. There was no more hiding. Zara closed her eyes for a moment, the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. She could hear the voice of her past, the voice that had told her she was a sinner, that she wasn't worthy of redemption. But there was also another voice, Alex's voice, telling her that she wasn't alone anymore, that she could stand and fight for her future. And in that moment, Zara realized something important. The choice wasn't just about escaping her past. It was about choosing who she was going to be in the future. It was about deciding that she was worthy of a new beginning, no matter how hard it was to fight for it. "Alex," she said, her voice firm and filled with resolve. "I'm ready. Let's fight." The moment she said the words, something inside her shifted. The fear that had held her captive for so long melted away, replaced by a fierce, unshakable strength. She wasn't going to run anymore. She wasn't going to hide. She was going to stand and fight for the future she deserved, for the life she wanted to build. The enforcers reached the top of the ridge, their weapons drawn, their eyes filled with cold intent. But Zara didn't flinch. She stood tall, her head held high, ready to face whatever came next. Alex stood beside her, his hand resting on the hilt of his weapon. Together they prepared to face the enemy, knowing that this was the ultimate moment. They were no longer just fighting for survival. They were fighting for the truth, for redemption, and for the right to live free from the chains of judgment. The enforcers charged forward. Zara and Alex stepped forward to meet them, ready to confront their past, their present, and their future with courage, knowing that this was the moment they had been fighting for. No matter what happened next, they would face it together. And in that moment, as the battle began, Zara knew that her new beginning had already started. The past no longer held her prisoner. She had chosen her future, and no one could take that away from her.